This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for joining us. I hope you were able to spend a fair bit of time surrounded by loved ones this weekend, as we are, of course, still mourning the death of one of the greatest men to ever walk the earth, Charlie Kirk, a man of faith, a man who was so principled, he was so courageous, who was murdered in cold blood for speaking the truth. And we all know what Charlie Kirk was fighting for.
Every day that you go to fight for us, you say, I'm not fighting for politicians. I'm fighting for the 3-year-old right now in Reno, Nevada, so that they can have a better future. That's what you're fighting for, yes, sir. Not the den of thieves in Washington, D.C.
Yes, sir.
Charlie Kirk died a hero, practicing free speech in the most respectful way possible. And Charlie Kirk was an incredible example to all of us. So often, bring it back to what's most important in life: your relationship with the divine, your relationship with your family, and your love of country. And this is Charlie Kirk earlier in the year with one of his kids. Charlie shared that video with this message to his large Gen Z audience, which is: get married, have kids, and stop partying into oblivion. Leave a legacy, be courageous. Happy Sunday, and God bless all the parents out there. Yet there are still media outlets just desperately trying to trash Charlie, claiming that he was full of hate. It is so pathetic. I mean, no one can take some of these left-wing journalists seriously, and we'll be getting into all of that later in the show with the amount of lies being spewed about Charlie Kirk. But we know who he really was. This was his message to young men while speaking with Tucker Carlson.
My great hope is the spiritual hope that the young men that are lost, and if any young man is listening to this right now, like, stop watching porn, stop, smoking weed, stop drinking endlessly, find yourself back to church. That will reorient your life.
I agree.
And do what the church tells you to do. Find a woman, marry her, provide, have more kids than you can afford. That's my advice for young men.
Yes.
Don't play the victim, even though you legitimately can play the victim card on everything we've said.
I agree.
The mindset of a victim is parasitic to your soul.
Now, Vice President JD Vance has hosted an episode of the Charlie Kirk Show, and he was emotional as he spoke about Charlie Kirk, and this was what he learnt from him.
Look for that moment that I needed to be a better husband and I needed to be a better father. Because of all these moments that I shared just in the last few days, the books that I've read to my kids, going up to their bedroom and kissing them and hugging them before bed, I just realized that all of these moments that I get to have, Charlie is not able to have them anymore. And Charlie's kids and his beautiful wife are not able to have them anymore. And maybe the best way that I can contribute and the best way that I can honor my dear friend is to be the best husband that I can be, to be the kind of husband to my wife that he was to his.
Yeah, we're going to see more of that, all because of Charlie Kirk. Now, Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk, is the epitome of strength and grace, just days after watching her husband and father of her children be killed in the most evil way possible by a left-wing extremist. Erica Kirk stood tall and shared this message with the world.
Evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love. But they should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country and this world. You have no idea. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry.
How incredible is Erica Kirk? They tried to silence Charlie because Charlie was a bright light who spoke the truth. But his voice has just been magnified around the world. In the past few days, tens of thousands of people have been signing up to Turning Point USA, and millions around the world are showing nothing but love and respect for Charlie Kirk. On Friday night here in Sydney, Australia, I attended a vigil for Charlie at Hyde Park, which was organised by Turning Point Australia, and it was so beautiful, it was so peaceful, and it was really healing to be around and surrounded, I should say, by people who had nothing but love in their heart for Charlie and respect everything that he was fighting for. Now, vigils have been held in all corners of the globe: Australia, South Korea, the UK, and throughout America. This is what it looked like in Huntington Beach, California. And the New York Jets crowd broke out into USA chants as Charlie Kirk was honoured on the big screen. And some of the tributes are just so moving. In the UK, Charlie Kirk was honoured at the Unite the Kingdom rally in London, where it's estimated around 1 million people took to the streets. And plenty of patriots were chanting Charlie's name. Utah Governor Spencer Cox also made the point that I think we're all observing. Unlike what we saw in 2020 during the BLM riots, where there was violence and rioting and absolute chaos, following Charlie Kirk's assassination, the reaction has been overwhelmingly peaceful.
I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting, there was no looting, there were no cars set on fire, there was no violence. There were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity.
Charlie Kirk wanted to be remembered for his faith. Right now, we are seeing a huge shift. People are feeling called to go to church for the first time. People are buying Bibles for the very first time. In fact, the Bible is trending across social media platforms. And I think because of Charlie's message, do something radical, get married and have children and stand up for what you believe in, we're going to see a generation of Charlie Kirks, young people full of faith, full of courage as they speak the truth. And I think we're also going to be seeing more marriages and more babies because of Charlie. Joining us now is President and founder of Strelmark, Hilary Fordwich. Hilary, thank you for joining us today. We're learning more about the suspected assassin of Charlie Kirk, and that is 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. Now, Utah Governor Spencer Cox has revealed that Robinson developed a leftist ideology after appearing to become increasingly radicalised in recent years. It's also been revealed that he was in a romantic relationship with a trans person who was a male transitioning to a female. Now, although investigators are not yet ready to discuss a potential motive yet, I think it's no surprise hearing that the suspect is a radical leftist.
Well, no surprise at all. And Gabriella, I will say that whatever his motives were and whatever his politics were, what he probably did not realize is that he has literally, and to quote many people who said the similar things in different ways, awoken a sleeping giant, because there have been so many applications now for more on-campus turning point chapters, up to 37,000. So I think this is actually going to really spur a movement in the United States which will honor Charlie Kirk.
I think you're exactly right. I think a lot of people are waking up, and all this has done really, it has magnified Charlie Kirk's voice. And it's been amazing to see over the weekend more people attending church for the very first time, picking up a Bible for the first time, and more people around the world listening to Charlie Kirk's wisdom. Now, Donald Trump says that there are a lot of people on the left who are now under investigation following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And he's also issued a warning to foreigners who may be celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. Listen to this.
Have you asked to start revoking the visas of the foreigners who have celebrated Charlie Kirk's death?
No, we haven't, but we are looking at names. We don't like that. That's not right. We wouldn't celebrate if something happened on their side, and we don't. These are sick people. These are really deranged people.
Hillary, I was so relieved to hear that from Donald Trump, because there are plenty of deranged people, including people right here in Australia, refusing to acknowledge Charlie Kirk's death, and some are even celebrating it. Can I get your thoughts?
Well, yes, and there's always is the violence on the left. I mean, just look, for example, after Elon Musk got involved with the election, you know, the left were burning and setting Teslas on fire. When the right disagreed with all of the pride things and the move that Budweiser made, what did they do? They boycotted Budweiser. Nobody was burning down Budweiser factories. So this, most unfortunately, is very consistent with the liberal left, the violence, just like even after the George Floyd incidents, arson, violence everywhere. No, I think what's really important is what we mentioned just now about the opening of chapters on campuses, doing what Charlie Kirk said, which he said, form a family, work hard, and all of his very honorable, hardworking principles, providing for families, paying your taxes, and being a good law-abiding citizen.
Absolutely. And the president-elect posted several comments in a WhatsApp group, including "Charlie Kirk got shot, let's effing go," and here he is promoting violence.
To effectively create change in the world we desire. And side prop will argue that at times there is simply nothing else that can be required other than violent retaliation. And this is a view I wholeheartedly agree with. The view that some institutions are too broken, too aggressive, too oppressive to be reformed. Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
I mean, you compare those words to the words of Charlie Kirk, someone who was promoting fighting with words, not with violence.
Yes, he promoted with words, and you're absolutely right there, not violence. And this is what was very unique about him. He did, though, not just preach to the converted, as they say the expression. He actually went to campuses where he knew that the views were totally and utterly opposed to him. And I've seen so many clips and interviews, and I'm sure your audience has too, where you're seeing him reason, and he's giving facts and he's giving information. He's not turning to violence. And I think that's a very good role model for young people, which I suspect is one of the many reasons those 37,000 new applications are for these existing chapters. And last but not least, he actually was at, and everybody should look at, when he attended Oxford University, he was actually there, and he talked to the students there, talking to them about being taking pride in their British heritage, in the foundations that the British culture has set for the world in terms of law, in terms of inventions, in terms of civilization. And instead of being, radical about it, in looking at your history and what it's brought to the world in terms of civilization.
Look, finally, Hillary, just before we move on from these psychopaths that are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, a public school teacher in Canada has been suspended after allegedly showing a video of Charlie Kirk's assassination to students as young as 10 in his class. That's according to reports from authorities. And this teacher also suggested that Charlie Kirk deserved to be killed and gave the young students a speech about anti-fascism and transgender issues. Now, hearing those reports, I just have to agree with Vice President JD Vance here. Now, JD Vance hosted Charlie Kirk's podcast this morning in what he called a special tribute to his close friend. And JD Vance used the podcast to encourage people to go after anyone who celebrated Charlie Kirk's death and report them to their employer. Listen to this.
The entire administration is trying to do as much as possible to find everything that we can about what led to this, about how we got here, and of course, ultimately, how an assassin took Charlie's life. I wanted to zoom out with Stephen a little bit and talk about all of the ways that we're trying to figure out how to prevent this festering violence that you see on the far left from becoming even more and more mainstream. And
Hillary, what are your thoughts on what JD had to say?
Well, I totally agree with JD Vance. And with regard to the story and the teacher that you mentioned, I mean, these are 5th and 6th graders. He made them watch that violence, that assassination over and over and over again. I actually can't even think of a time when that would be appropriate for such young students, let alone the lecture that he gave them on top of that. And JD Vance is exactly right that anybody that does celebrate death on either side of the political spectrum, they should be reported to whoever they work for. I know that already there have been pilots, teachers, medical professionals that have done that have been reported. And I think it's the right thing to do because we shouldn't tolerate such violence and intolerance in any society.
Absolutely agree with you. And, you know, Charlie Kirk was calling out the deranged assassination culture that seems to exist in the far left. He was talking about this months ago, even years ago. But you mentioned, Hillary, that Turning Point USA has seen a massive surge in inquiries for new college chapters as the organisation works to advance Charlie Kirk's vision following his assassination last week. And look, would you say that his death is a bit of a turning point? I know that's become a bit of a talking point, I should say, but so many people just would love to continue the mission that he started.
Well, absolutely. And I actually would say that I think many people admired what his wife, Erica, said. And what she said was that his voice and his memory and his message will not be forgotten. And I think that, you know, we should all bear in mind what Shakespeare said as, you know, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. She's been scorned by this death and she is not going to let this go. And the 37,000 applications, I think absolutely, yes, prove that people are not going to let his very healthy, very law-abiding, hard-working message die. I think it's not going to die with him. In fact, it's a sleeping giant that's been awoken.
Absolutely. Look, Erica Kirk, she's absolutely incredible. I'm in awe of her. Finally, before I let you go, Donald Trump will arrive in the UK soon for his second state visit, which will also include trade talks with Keir Starmer. What else can we expect, Hillary?
Oh, yes, it's going to be rather good in terms of business for both nations. They're actually going to be talking about nuclear power that will power AI, these huge data centers that are going to be developed, which will be beneficial to both countries. They say that actually data centers use about as much electricity as New York City does in a day. So it's going to be a tremendous agreement with regard to nuclear power. And we're going to see not a carriage tour through the town of Windsor, because of course there were predicted to be some protests in Windsor and he's not going to London, but President Trump will be attending a state dinner at Windsor Castle. He will be laying a wreath for the beloved former Queen Elizabeth II. She is interned at St. George's Chapel, and there she is interned with Prince Philip, her husband, the Queen Mother, her mother, and King George VI and her sister Margaret, Princess Margaret. So President Trump will be visiting there. He will have a carriage tour with King Charles and Camilla and actually the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales, Catherine, through the grounds, though, of Windsor Castle, extensively with military in attendance, the RAF, all of the different services. And there will be a flyover, American flyover, UK flyover, the state dinner Wednesday night. And then he will be departing and going to Chequers, Sir Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister's home, country home in Buckinghamshire. And Princess Catherine, interestingly, will be spending some time alone with Melania, the US First Lady, and they will be visiting some Boy Scouts events and doing some things together as well.
Okay. Hillary Fordwich, President and founder of Strollmark, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Pleasure, Gabriella. Thank you.
It's time for Media Meltdowns, and who is surprised that the media is lying about Charlie Kirk and the incredible man that he was? While millions of us are mourning his death, mainstream media outlets have labelled him divisive, far-right and full of hate. And this New York Times journalist described Charlie as a symbol of toxic culture that we're in.
He's, become in this last few days, I think, a symbol of the toxic culture that we're in right now in politics. And
the New York Times also told millions of readers that Charlie Kirk was anti-Semitic, something that couldn't be further from the truth. And then quietly, the New York Times offered this correction that their claim was completely false. It says, an earlier version of this article described incorrectly an anti-Semitic statement that Charlie Kirk had made on an episode of his podcast. He was quoting a statement from a post on social media and went on to critique it. It was not his own statement. I mean, a pretty crucial detail that they left out there. He was criticising anti-Semites. Here in Australia, former Guardian political reporter Amy Ramakis wrote an essay for the New Daily titled, "I'm sorry Charlie Kirk is dead, but I cannot mourn him. This is why." Why? Well, clearly, Amy, you are a heartless human being. I mean, JD Vance is right. We cannot have unity with these deranged, sick people who cannot find it in their heart to mourn the death of a loving husband and a loving father. And Australia's darling of the left, Cheek Media chief executive Hannah Ferguson wrote, "Is violence sometimes necessary? Yes." And of course, Teal MP Zali Steggall liked Hannah's post. Since she's been called out for this, she claims that her liking the post doesn't mean she actually likes it. I mean, make sense of that. And here is ex-CNN host Don Lemon suggesting that all of the journalists and podcasters who have been shaken to their core over Charlie Kirk's death are doing it for attention.
The thing that is so obvious about it, and I think is so disgusting, is that you don't really care. You don't really care about Charlie Kirk. What you care is that this is a moment that you can use for clicks, to boost your podcast or your streaming show or your radio show or your television show or your news show or your MAGA bona fides with the MAGA group or your political stripes, that you can improve it, or you can have a moment where you're crying in front of the cameras. You gather all the reporters at the Capitol and you go, and it's your fault, and it's your fault, and it's the left and whatever.
Yeah, he's sick and deranged. It's not just the media lying about Charlie Kirk, though. Celebrities are doing it too. Author Stephen King posted on social media that in the wake of his assassination, he advocated stoning gays to death, just saying. He later reversed course, posting, "I apologise for saying Charlie Kirk advocated stoning gays. What he actually demonstrated was how some people cherry-pick biblical passages." But his message was already out there, being shared and seen thousands of times on social media. So people who didn't know Charlie Kirk, they are getting the completely wrong impression of him. And here is Bob Villan's message to his crowd, celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder.
I want to dedicate this next one to an absolute piece of a human being. The pronouns was, were,
I mean, it's pure evil. Charlie Kirk said it best, you can tell a lot about a person by how they react when someone dies. Joining us now is Louise Roberts, skynews.com.au columnist. Louise, thank you so much for your time.
Great to be here, Gabriella.
Can I get your reaction to some of the things that we've heard coming from the media, coming from so-called journalists, and the lies that have been told about Charlie Kirk just hours and days after he was murdered so brutally?
Brutally. I mean, what a week we've seen. What a narrative that's been played out by the leftist media and those who are indoctrinated by this ideology that Charlie was an evil person and he preached an evil message, when what he spoke about was patriotism, love for your family, love per se, and his faith. Yeah. And he said to people, debate me, challenge me, help me understand your point of view. That's not a toxic message. But it's very easy for the left side to say he was toxic because they didn't agree with what he said. They didn't agree with what he stood for. And also, I think they didn't like his influence and the way he permeated the minds of young people who thought, hey, it's a good thing to support your country. It's a good thing to love your parents. And it's a good thing. Love your family and be a decent, active member of society. Try and do good, try and change. Which, of course, now Charlie's widow, Erica, is sort of really wanting to push that message and say, we will continue his terrific work in this space. So Look, the moment you question left ideology, you're the enemy.
Yeah, it's true. And, you know, there are so many things that were completely amazing about Charlie, but he encouraged so many people to stand up for what you believe in and to fight with words, not violence. And, you know, what happened is just absolutely horrific. And then watching some of the comments being made about Charlie, I'm lost for words.
That's right.
It's
and also
disgusting.
the journalist, the media, who has a responsibility to be impartial and actually report the truth, the way some of those narratives, as you illustrated there, has just skewed the story even further. We've got young people thinking, oh, is that actually what happened? So he was killed for being violent. He was killed for advocating toxicity in society. No, he was murdered for being a decent person.
It's so frustrating, and we could have kept going. I mean, there are so many examples. You pick up so many left-wing media newspapers, you turn on the TV, and he's just labelled divisive, full of hate. There's so much commentary around it, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And I thought this was interesting. Psychologist Claire Rowe wrote in the AFR that influencers who celebrate Kirk's death show their true colours. And she wrote, in the days following the shocking assassination of Charlie Kirk, the internet has split not just along predictable political lines, but moral ones. There has been grief and outrage, yes, but also celebration from those who style themselves as champions of empathy, kindness, and anti-violence. And we have seen loud celebrations from left-wing liberal women who are the same group of people who dominate the Be Kind campaigns, and it's just BS.
Yeah, she's absolutely, I think Claire's brilliant. She's absolutely skewered the narrative and the hypocrisy there that we're preaching empathy, you know, be kind, we're representing the underdog, the people in society that don't have a voice. Well, no, they're not. If they really genuinely wanted to have that platform, they would say, we don't condone violence. We have to find a way for respectful discussion in society. Internationally, clearly this is a major breakdown on a global level, the fact that people can't talk and share ideas without risk of being killed, which is what happened to poor Charlie, of course.
No. Look, left-wing influencers that we mentioned, Abby Chatfield, Hannah Ferguson, they publicly criticised Charlie Kirk just hours after he was murdered in front of his family. And Teal MP Zali Steggall liked Hannah Ferguson's post, and then she unliked it when she was called out for it. And then she claims, oh, liking the post doesn't mean I actually like it. But I mean, it really worries me when you've got politicians kind of supporting messages that left-wing influencers are putting out there, such as the one that the message that Hannah Ferguson put out when she said, is violence sometimes necessary? Yes.
No, it's not necessary. We know that. And for a federal MP to like that post and then try and walk back the like by saying, well, actually, I don't really condone his death. I'm sort of, you know, more interested in the debate about this issue. It's absolute rubbish. This is a person who built her whole election platform on integrity and honesty and empathy and decency, all the things that Charlie stood for, I might add. And yet she likes a post, you know, celebrating his death. It's just, I mean, for a federal politician to do that, I think is absolutely disgraceful.
I completely agree. Now, we mentioned Erica Kirk. I'm in awe of her strength, her grace. I don't know how she found the strength to front up to the cameras and deliver the message to the world. Just so close shortly after Charlie Kirk was murdered. This is what she revealed about the conversations she's already had to have with their young children.
When I got home last night, Gigi, our daughter, just ran into my arms. And I talked to her and she said, Mommy, I missed you. I said, I missed you too, baby. She goes, where's Daddy? What do you tell a 3-year-old? She's 3. I said, baby, Daddy loves you so much. Don't you worry. He's on a work trip with Jesus, so he can afford your blueberry budget. And my goodness, am I so humbled to witness, Charlie, you alongside Jesus right now, doing what you always want to do, baby.
I think all of our hearts just break for Erica.
Absolutely.
But she's incredible. I love what she told her daughter, though, on a work trip with Jesus.
That's right. And that's, you know, these are the words that no mother ever wants to say to their child. But the way she framed it, there was no hysteria or anger. Even when she tells that story, which is utterly heartbreaking, as you say, it shows her grace and dignity, which none of his opponents or now her opponents would ever show, ever. in their entire lives.
Exactly
and I
right.
think that, you know, that private pain but that public dignity, she's almost like she's sparing us the agony of, you know, what she's really going through in a way, and obviously sparing her children, and that's Charlie's legacy.
Yeah.
Fantastic family and a very strong faith.
Finally, before I let you go, the Emmys have been held, and of course we're seeing celebrities getting political again, and this time Hannah Einbinder, who won an award for Best Supporting Actress in a comedy series for her performance in Hack, had this message.
Finally, I'll pay the difference, sorry. Finally, I just want to say, finally, go Birds and free Palestine. Thank you.
Oh, what a nice endorsement for Hamas there.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, it's very easy to say free Palestine when you live in a gated community and you're very wealthy and you've got private security. These are people who would never set foot in Tel Aviv, clearly, or Gaza or anywhere like that, would they? Again, not using her platform. Why didn't she say, please free the hostages? Why
Exactly.
didn't she say, let's fight for peace?
Yeah.
Why didn't she condemn the terrorists? Oh, no. They can't do that, can they? They can't actually be on the side of decency, these Hollywood celebrities.
No, sadly, it doesn't surprise me. Louise Roberts, thank you so much for your
Good to see
time.
you.
Brilliant to speak with you. Joining us now is Melbourne East Liberal Party Branch President Edward Kroger. Edward Kroger, thank you for joining us. Look, Charlie Kirk was admired across generations, but he was a hugely influential figure for Gen Zs. And partly because of Charlie Kirk, we saw this significant swing to the right in the US election, with 47% of Gen Z voters supporting Donald Trump. But it wasn't just young people in America who absolutely loved Charlie. He was loved so much right here in Australia as well, and across the world. Can I get your reflections of Charlie Kirk?
Well, Gab, thank you so much for having me. You're perfectly right. He was an enormous figure among the young people. All you have to do is look at the statistics. In the last election, for instance, there was over a 40 percentage swing among, in this instance, young men aged 19 to 29. They turned by 40% away from the Democrats to the Republicans. But firstly, may I just say, Gab, I mean, I'm lost for words, as we all are. It is unfathomable what happened, and it's so hard to even come up with some words to describe the magnitude of the tragedy. It was so callous, it was so wicked, so cowardly. I mean, here he was in front of children, effectively, teenagers, unarmed. I believe his family were even there. I mean, the radical left are a massive danger, are a massive threat, and we just pray for his family, and we love him forever.
Well said, Edward. I mean, watching that assassination, it was just pure evil, and then seeing parts of the left celebrate his death, it's, it makes me lost for words as well. But let's talk about how much we love Charlie. You know, he was such a passionate guy. You know, how was he able to connect with young people in a way like no one else could?
Indeed. Well, you make a great point, Gab. He really did connect with the young people better than anybody. I think the president said it. He just had a way with the young people. And coming back to what I first said, indeed, although young men particularly were massive fans of Charlie Kirk, his Turning Point institution with millions of members, there was an extraordinary amount of gender parity there. Young, ambitious people, women and men. And you ask why? What was it about him? And I've been reflecting on this. I really think that when Charlie Kirk spoke, people listened to him and they believed in what he said. Of course, not every single word that ever came out of his mouth was perfect or something to, you know, everything to celebrate. But the vast majority of what he said was so true. He had common sense conservatism. And as I say, I think when people listened to him, they said, this man is telling the truth. I believe him, and I'm going to listen to what he says. And as I said, his impact, his influence is just borne out by the statistics. I mean, he had billions of views across multiple different social media platforms, across TikTok, for instance, and YouTube. I mean, this man was extraordinary. He was a tour de force. And if there are older people perhaps watching who don't have TikTok, I mean, I don't even have it, but perhaps if you haven't seen too much of him, let me just tell you that every young person knew him around the world. And they listened to him even for a little bit, and some listened to him every day. So it's just an extraordinary, terrible tragedy, and we feel for him and his family.
Oh,
and,
we do.
His movement will live on, however.
Absolutely. His movement will live on. And you mentioned his exceptional debating skills there. Here are some of his best moments.
So I do not have hate for a group. I do not have hate for a people. I have hate
just so I can get it on my camera. So Instagram,
don't worry, we got plenty of cameras, but yeah.
But yes, so you do not hate the LGBT community, and Turning Point is not against LGBT.
No, how could I hate that which I have a heart for?
Thank you.
And I might not agree at that for some of the lifestyle choices that some people make, but of course not.
And Edward, he really advocated for a return to common sense and conservative values. I mean, and we're seeing that shift take place in America. Do you think the same thing can be said about young people here in Australia? Do you think really because of Charlie Kirk, people might actually go back to common sense and then really adopting conservative values?
I think they will, and they are. I mean, about Charlie Kirk, there were two main things that I picked up and that millions of his fans did. Two central areas. The first was his patriotism. At every turn, he uplifted his country. He spoke good of his country. He believed in the past, the present, of course, under the president, and its future. He never spoke bad about the country. And if ever he did, it was only very temporarily, only so as to correct. And as you say about personal responsibility, I mean, this was not a man who went around just telling everybody what they wanted to hear. This is what I mean. He spoke and people believed in him. And of course, the three main things that he would always tell at every turn, at every speech he would give his young people advice, and it was this: get married, have kids, and go to church. I mean, what sort of... Some people on the left, of course, perhaps we'll get to it, it is the most abhorrent thing, even talking down on it. But who could quarrel with those ideals?
Well, it's interesting. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more people getting married and having babies and even going to church. And we're already seeing that this weekend. I mean, churches were packed. We're seeing people go out and buy the Bible for the very first time. Bible is actually trending on plenty of social media platforms. Do you think we're also going to see this kind of return to the Christian faith because of Charlie?
I think, Gab, we are seeing it. And I think one thing that perhaps hasn't been emphasised enough about Charlie Kirk, which is his enormous influence in the present revival of faith, Christianity in particular. And I think this has come about because he wasn't remotely ashamed of his faith in Jesus Christ. He was most proud of it. And he would say it, as I say, in every speech. I mean, just some quotes, we've watched some video of him. But he would give out speeches and he would say, I've flown on Air Force One 12 times. I'm nearly best friends with the president. I live in a massive mansion. I have everything going for me. But what really matters, he said, is one's relationship with the divine, family, and the truth. And so he was, in a way, a godly man, a very God-fearing man. And as I said before, there is a massive uprising in Christian faith, a revival of it. And just to emphasise once more, I do not think he has been given the credit for this because he was so open, so public, and he was so learned in the scriptures. He would quote dozens of passages off the top of his head. He studied it so much, so deeply. And so I say again, he was a really godly man, and there is a revival. And people are clinging to faith now in these turbulent and tumultuous times.
Yeah, we're seeing that. No, I loved watching him and the way he could recite the Bible. It was incredible. Finally, before I let you go, Edward Kroger, I read over the weekend there are rumours you will be making a run for Parliament. Are they true?
Well, Gab, I am most honoured and feel very privileged to even be spoken of and thought of in this context. In any parliament of this country. I am, however, most devoted to presently the study of the law. I'm in my final year and I intend fully to practice law. What I will say, however, is that people are crying out for reform and for a change. We've had this atrocious government. I mean, these people can't do a single thing right. You look, crime is a disaster. They've totally lost control. Their solution is, let's spend a couple of $1 million buying back the machetes. I mean, Why don't we just outlaw the machetes and then say, hey, if you don't give them back, we're going to punish you? Why do we have to reward people? The housing crisis. I mean, you look at the approvals. They take like a year, 2 years to approve. Why don't we do it in a week's time? That's what Donald Trump's been doing recently. There are so many things that this government is doing terribly. I think we'd be much better off if they just sat there and did nothing, because all they're doing is just hurting us.
Oh, look, I agree with you. The machete bins are just such a joke. Edward Croker, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gab.
And that is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.